All right, let's look at our parallel lines and our transversals. So just a little review of our vocabulary. What are parallel lines? Well, they're going to be two lines that do not, never, ever intersect, so they're never going to meet in any form or fashion. You remember they look like this. The important part is that they do not meet. So they look like this. So our symbol for parallel lines are two parallel lines. Go figure. And you're going to see it written like this. So line AB is parallel to line CD. Also, you see the little arrows in the middle of those lines? That also means that they're parallel. Okay, so now let's look at two parallel lines that are cut by our transversal. Remember our definition of our transversal? Look back at your notes, and it's just a line that intersects two or more lines. And so we're having a line intersecting our parallel lines. And again, we're going to be looking at the angles. And you're going to be using all of your knowledge of all of the angle relationships to figure out what these angles are. So this is our first example. Given that the measure of angle 1 is 65 degrees, find the measure of all the other angles. So if 1 is 65 degrees. So you can use your knowledge of all of the angle relationships, supplementary, linear pairs, adjacent, vertical angles, our corresponding angles, our, what did we talk about last video? Consecutive, interior, alternating exterior, alternating interior, all that knowledge of all these angles to figure out what the rest of these angles measures are. So let's look at an angle that is corresponding with angle 1. Remember, same side of the transversal in the same position on the lines. That would be angle 5, which would be also 65 because remember our corresponding angles are always congruent. Okay. Next, let's look at, I don't remember what using some prior knowledge. Let's find angle 7. What's the relationship between 5 and 7? They're vertical angles, so that means that they are congruent. So I know I kind of showed you that. So what's a corresponding angle to angle 7? Same side of the transversal, same position on the line. Well, that would be angle 3. So 3 also has to be 65. So now let's find all the other angles. Starting, I don't know, with 2 or 4. What's their relationship to the one next to it? Remember when we have a straight line, how many degrees that is? It's 180. So if we have an angle, if we have a line bisecting or cutting that angle, then those two angles add up to the 180. So if I'm looking at angles 1 and 2, since they're on that line cut by that transversal, those two angles are going to add up to 180. So to find 2, I take 180 minus 65, and that's 115. So that's the measure of 2. And if that's the measure of 2, then that has to be the measure of 4, because again, those are vertical angles. They're also linear pairs with 1 and 4, and 4 and 3 are linear pairs. So those all add up to 180. 2 and 6 are corresponding. So that's also 115. Also, the relationships with the angles around it makes it 115 as well. And then 8 is 115. Okay, let's look at one where we're trying to solve for the variable, because you know we love algebra in our geometry class. So we need to determine the relationship between these two angles that are given in order to figure out how we're going to go about solving for our variable. So remember, the relationship is either, we've got two options. They're either going to add up to 180 or they're going to equal to each other. Okay, so let's look at the positions of our angles, and then we'll figure out, based on our knowledge and our notes, what relationship this is and which one it's going to be. So they are on opposite sides of the transversal. And what's the relationship to those two lines? They are on the outside. So they are alternating exterior. Flip back, alternating exterior means that they are congruent. They are equal to each other. So I can set these two equal to each other. 16, alternate exterior, always congruent. Set them equal to each other. 16x plus 22 equals 134. Now I'm just solving for x. We know how to do this. Get x on one side by itself by doing the opposite operations. Subtract 22 from each side. 16x equals 112. Divide both sides by 16. X equals 7. That is it. That's all our question asks for. If it asks for what the angle measure is, we would know that would be 134. All right, these are the kinds of problems you're going to practice. Let me know when you have questions.